So since we were not able to live stream last week, some of you missed this idea that for this Lenten season, I chose to focus on the parables of Jesus. It seemed right to share those beautiful teachings of Jesus in a way that we can use them to transform us. You know, in Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So we hear these parables in a way that allows us in this Lenten season to be transformed. After all, isn't that the purpose of Lent and Easter? To be transformed, to raise our thinking and our consciousness. So I ask the question, when am I that, as I read these parables? And then my ego isn't stirred into action. It doesn't feel like it needs to be defensive. And I can really begin truth-telling with myself. And all of those places and spaces where these parables touch me. So the invitation to you as we travel through the parables is of Jesus to ask yourself, when am I that? And then how we move beyond where we are to where we can be, to the infinite potential in our lives. Not for the purpose of shaming or guilting. That's useless, but for the purpose of expanding and growing, to become aware of what's in our subconscious mind so that we can transform it and make it whole and healthy. So today the parable is the parable of the sower from Matthew 13. And that same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. Such a large crowd gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat in it, while all the people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, a farmer went out to sow his seed, and as he scattered the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds quickly came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where they didn't have much soil. They sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow, and then the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no roots. Then other seeds fell among the thorns, which grew up and choked out the plants. Still other seeds fell on good soil, where it produced a crop 100, 60, or 30 times more than what was sown. Whoever has ears, let them hear. So what is it that we hear in this parable? Beginning with the farmer went out to sow his seeds, and as he scattered the seeds, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate them up. So imagine a farmer walking through his field with his burlap bag filled with seeds, and he's walking through the rows of crops and around the path around, and as he's placing and tossing seeds into the ground, some are flying on the path and landing all over the path. That path that many had walked before. Many had pressed the ground down hard, almost as hard as concrete. The path was firmly held in the earth and had hardened over time. So the seeds couldn't penetrate the soil. Luckily for the birds, they came and ate and feasted. So I asked myself, when am I unyielding like that hard path? When am I so certain and so sure of what I think that nothing can penetrate? My thoughts and my mind and my consciousness, my opinions and my perspectives, the things that I say I believe. When am I unyielding and intractable so that nothing can move my thinking from where I am? How can I soften my heart and my mind to listen and hear what other people have to say, other perspectives? I may land on the same conclusion when it's all said and done, but it might be fun, engaging, or even enticing to hear what other people think and test my opinions, to poke at my thoughts and to probe those conclusions I've made. Because my mind might change over time. You know, our Unity co-founder, Charles Fillmore, always reserved the right to change his mind. And isn't that part of our spiritual maturity and growth, is changing our mind? So I do this with my faith. I do that with these Unity teachings pretty regularly. Do I really believe that God is good and present everywhere? How do I believe that? Where do I see that? Where don't I see that? How can I grow and expand my understanding? Because I look around and some places, God's really there. When I make the messes in my life, oh yes, God is there. So I have to poke that and probe it and question it. And I can only have a faith that I can look at that way. Nothing else makes sense to me. So find somebody in your life that has different opinions than you. Create a safe space, a safe environment for you and others to sit and share in a loving way. Not with the intention of changing somebody else's mind, but just for listening, to really hear the words and what's behind the words of others. It actually can help us become more clear about what we believe. Our rigidity comes from our past experiences. Our rigidity comes from our fear, and it comes from our assumptions. Our judgments. You might say, well, I'm not judgmental. I'm open-minded. That hard soil doesn't allow room for us to encounter our biases or our prejudices. So you might say, well, I'm not prejudiced. Well, I'll tell you how I see it. I walk my dog, Elliot, on the trails. And Elliot's on a leash. And when a golden retriever approaches on a leash, I'm all over that. And I'm ready to bend down and pet and snuggle with that golden retriever. When a pit bull comes and I have Elliot on my leash, I pull that leash closer and walk to the edge of the path to pass by the pit. Now, when a big dog comes bounding down that path unleashed, I'm terrified. I don't know what that dog's going to do to me or to my Elliot. I have made opinions. I have judged based on past experience, based on fear, based on assumptions. I assume that that golden retriever is always going to be true to its nature and friendly and warm and snuggly and want to lick me and hug with me. I assume that. The pit bull has a little bit of a reputation, even though my daughter and son-in-law and their family have 3. I don't know what that pit bull is going to do. I don't know how it's been trained. I made a prejudiced assumption. We do that in life. We are judging machines. We sift and sort and we judge. I assume the unleashed dog might bring great danger to me based on past experience. So we move on, looking at those places and spaces where we have these ideas so tightly formed in us that nothing can grow out of it. Being mindful and present to each moment allows us a little grace to change our mind and to expand our thinking. And boy, let me tell you, visiting my daughter with 3 pit bulls has bully breeds has really changed my mind. They are just big old cuddlers. Those dogs want to be in your lap and in your face and your arms around them all the time. That's the real bully breed. So I can let go of some of those opinions that I had. Allowing our minds to be changed is part of growing and expanding on our spiritual understanding of these divine truths and spiritual laws. We don't have to be those rigid and stiff-necked people spoken about in Exodus. And the parable continues. Some seeds fell on a rocky place where it didn't have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched and they withered because they had no roots. So who gardens? Very poorly, but you garden. Well, that's... And have you ever tried to get away without properly clearing the soil and the land you were gardening on? I know I have, and boy, do I regret that. Leaving the stones will surely end exactly as the parable did. So unless I take all those stones seem to multiply in the earth over the course of a season. There's just, in this parable, there's just enough soil for the seed to germinate but not take good root. The plant dies because it can't be rooted. And sometimes the soil of our mind is a little bit shallow and not quite open to hanging on to those seeds of divine truth. We may hear the words of truth, but they burn out before they can take root in our lives. Can you sometimes see your life where that rocky land was unable to really grow those ideas and take hold of them in a real and meaningful way, to take them into our heart, to live them out in our lives, even though that still small voice is speaking to us? Or perhaps we've taken on the perceptions of other people. Oops. Maybe we listen to what other people have to say. You know, a lot of people come to unity with a previous religious experience, and it takes us a little while to loosen those roots and let go, and to take on this new truth that we call unity. Sometimes we hear this spiritual truth, the enticements of the world draw us away. Money, importance, recognition, and the things, the houses, the cars, the vacations, the boats, the jewelry, the shiny things of the world. They're all wonderful things. We all have them. But they are not our purpose in life. They lure us away from our spiritual journey. They lure us away from studying and being in that deep, rich soil. So when I call to mind these enticements and distractions, I wasn't really focused on spiritual understanding. I was focused on making my way in the world as the world asked me to be, as I thought I was supposed to be in the world. Thankfully, there's more seeds. Still other seeds fell on good soil where it produced a crop 160 or 30 times more than what had been sown. The good soil. Loose soil, where the seeds can nestle in. Rich in minerals for the seeds to grow. No thorns or thistles to kill out the growth. And the seeds are rooted and they germinate and they grow many more times what was planted. So we get to ask, when am I that? When am I that rich, fertile soil allowing Spirit to grow? Perhaps you're planted in this soil, growing ever more deep in your awareness, expanding in your understanding of the breadth and the infinite, the ultimate of God. The parable concludes with these words, "Whoever has ears, let them hear." So are we willing to hear the instructions of these parables and to live them? Are we willing to hear the teachings of Jesus and abide by them? Are we willing to let go of what is so deeply ingrained and embedded in us, hardening the soil of our hearts and minds? Are we willing to let go of that to fertilize the soil with divine truth and allow the richness of God to grow in us and to express as us, to live the truth we know each and every day? Are we willing to hear? And just as importantly, are we willing to follow that divine guidance, that still small voice that's always speaking, always, at every intersection, at every turn, literally and figuratively? And as I ask myself, when am I that in the parable of the sower? For each of the seeds, when am I hard? When am I that hard ground that is unable to hear, unwilling to hear or take in any new ideas, unwilling to open and release some of my biases and prejudices? When am I that rocky ground with too little soil? When am I the thorns and the thistles choking out life? And when am I that rich, nourishing soil that produces in abundance? And it feels important to remember that I carry in my human form all of those seeds, all of those terrains. I have all of that within me in my thoughts. These seeds are our thoughts, and we are the sowers. I have the capacity to be rigid in my convictions, and I have the capacity to grow endlessly and produce great crops of goodness in my world. So I choose with mindfulness where I plant myself. Where do I hang out? Is it life-affirming environments that I choose? Who are the people in my immediate circle? Are they people who nurture and nourish my spiritual journey and I theirs? And what do I allow in my consciousness? What do I invite into my mind through the news, through the sound bites, through social media? What do I allow in? Every farmer and gardener knows that we must care for the land before we plant our seeds. While the seeds are growing, we must till the soil. We must weed the garden. We must fertilize the earth. An important part emerges as we choose what characteristics of ourselves we put out into the world. We will always land in the rich, lush soil when we follow the words of 1 Corinthians 16:14. So will you say it with me? Let all you do be done in love. Namaste.